Hello, and welcome to this roundup of my five favorite romance novels that I read this month. I'm Olivia, your favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot, and you're watching Random Olive Reads. So we have To Tame a Scandalous Lady by Liana de la Rosa, which is book three of the Once Upon a Scandal series. Lady Flora, daughter of a duke and sister to a marquess with political ambitions, disguises herself as a man to become the assistant trainer at a horse racing operation. While she has set herself up to learn how to run a racing stable, she's surprised to find herself attracted to the marquess who owns the place. Christian aims to rebuild his family's legacy after a stable fire took the lives of his father and many prized racehorses. After spending all his money to rebuild the stables, he really needs this new horse to win in order to recoup the costs. When he finds out his horse trainer is actually a woman, he first wants to dismiss her, but then keeps her on after Flora stubbornly defends her actions. They start a dalliance while they aren't busy with the horses, but the truth of Flora's actual identity could lead to scandal for both of them if they're caught. I loved reading about the defiant and competent Flora here and how she doesn't cower to the men in her lives. A Rogue's Rules for Seduction by Eva Lee is book three of the Last Chance Scoundrels series. In this one, it's been nearly a year since Dom abandoned Willa at the altar, and his friends, aka her brothers, have conspired to bring them both together to the same isolated island house party in Scotland. Now that they're forced together, they have to finally talk out their issues if they have any hope of moving on, whether that's together or apart. We quickly see that while they were courting and engaged, each of them were playing a bit of a role and enjoyed the shock value of the other person's status rather than being the people they truly were. Dom used to be a dock worker and now he's the wealthy son of a shipping magnate, so he's considered an outsider to the aristocracy. Willa was the daughter of an earl and has always been brash and outrageous. She especially delighted in shocking the ton with her brutish suitor. Likewise, Dom viewed Willa as this unattainable prize, who first he felt proud to be able to court, but then he started feeling guilty that he was so far below her standing, ultimately leading to his abandonment. Now that they're in the same place again, they start to realize that they treated each other pretty superficially in their courtship and engagement, and that a marriage at that time would have been unhappy. But of course, the spark and attraction continues to exist between them, and now that they're being a little bit more honest with each other, they're starting to give in to those desires, even if they're not quite willing to risk their hearts yet. Loving the Marquess by Susanna Medeiros is book one of the Landing Lord series. Nicholas was the second son of Marquess and now is the Marquess after his father and brother both succumbed to an unexplained illness. Nicholas is now showing the same signs of that illness and worries for his health and the possibility of passing on the disease to a future generation. When he stumbles upon Louisa's cottage and passes out, he's nursed back to health, but he knows that his uncle was the one who wronged her family and feels terrible about it. Basically, his uncle had swindled her father out of the estate and the manor after a game of cards. Now, when Nicholas's grandmother pressures him to marry, he considers asking Louisa to be his bride. In fortuitous timing, Louisa shows up to ask for Nicholas's assistance after his cousin is forcing her to pay rent that she can't afford, or he's making some other insinuations for her to pay with alternate means. Nicholas proposes a marriage of convenience and offers protection for Louisa and her two younger siblings. However, he's planning for her pregnancy to be sired by someone other than him so that his illness isn't passed on. Of course, when Louisa finds out, and it's after the wedding that she finds out his plan, she's rightfully upset, and these two need to figure out how to be honest about their feelings towards each other. Bonus, we do ultimately solve the mystery of Nicholas's illness to a happy ending for all. Two Scandals in a Scot by Tracy Sumner is book five of the Duchess Society series. Now, Thea runs away from her pre wedding ball when her fiance's pregnant mistress shows up and crashes the party. Of course, she gets into the carriage of Dash, the friend that she had helped learn to read and write so that he could write a book about gambling cheats. When Dash realizes that she's run away from her Duke of a brother in law's house, he chases after her. Of course, these two cause an even bigger scandal when they're at an inn on the road and pretty much forced to marry when Theo's family catches up to them. Since the two are friends who are very much attracted to each other, Theo proposes that they stay friends with their own independence and not fall prey to the obsessive love that surrounds the other couples in their social sphere. Basically, all the couples from the past books. Making that bargain, they go on to marry and to settle into their new life a bit, trying so very hard not to involve their emotions, which goes exactly how you'd expect it to go if you're a frequent romance reader. I really enjoyed reading this book and learning more about Dash's background, how he basically worships Theo and her strength. And it's interesting to see that most people underestimate Theo except for Dash. And lastly, I'm going to talk about To Marry and to Meddle by Martha Waters. This is book 3 of the Regency Vows series. And in this one, we see the romance between Emily and Julian in a marriage of convenience story. We've had hints of their attraction through the first 2 books of the series, and we start here right at the end of the house party from book 2, where Julian has sort of been courting Emily and hinting to her that he would be able to save her family's debt as her husband. Now, we start right with a proposal in chapter 1 and learn about Julian's motivations for getting married. He wants to improve the reputation of his scandalous theater to gain the approval of his estranged father, even though he's not willing to admit that that's what he's trying to do. Emily is finally enjoying a bit of freedom away from her overbearing parents and learning to express her own opinions instead of always being so prim and proper. The romance between these two was easy and fun to read, with a fun little interfering kitten to add to the comedy factor of the story. I really enjoyed this book, and this was my favorite of the series. Thank you so much for watching this video. Links to all of these books are in the description box. Like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.